Hi everyone. Snow Country Stories Japan is still on a break between seasons and will be back this month. I'll announce the return date soon, but before I do that, I wanted to republish another episode from Season 1 of the pod. This episode is an edited version of Episode 4, Nakano of 1,000 Empty Houses in Search of Solutions to Japan's Akiya Problem. In this episode, I speak with Murai Shota, who works in the small town of Nakano, which is located between Nagano City and Yamanochi. Yamanochi is the area that includes Shigakogen Mountain Resort and the famous hot spring bathing monkeys of Jigokodani. Like many towns and villages across Japan, Nakano is experiencing aging and depopulation with an estimated 1,000 houses now empty in the town. It is Shota's job to find solutions and uses for the houses, including with the agreement of the owners, listing them to sell at often very cheap prices. The original episode was quite long at just under 1 hour in length, whereas this edit is just over 20 minutes. I hope you enjoy it in its own right, and if you'd like to hear our conversation in full, you can always go back to the original episode in which Shota and I go into a lot more detail about the Akiya problem, his work, and the reasons he chooses to live in Nakano. It's also a good follow-up to the recent edit I published of my chat with Rich Morgan about the restoration of his previously abandoned farmhouse in Togari, Nagano. If you want to follow Shota on Instagram, especially if you are interested in the properties in Nakano, after all, it's located midway between one of Japan's most livable cities and Japan's largest ski resort, make sure to follow his work on Instagram at Akiya_Nakano. If you've clicked on this episode as your first of the Snow Country Stories Japan podcast, thanks for joining us and I hope you enjoy it. It's worth repeating that this isn't a full episode, nor does it have all the usual music, introduction, outro, or an episode page on the website. Check out your podcast app for the full library of episodes from Season 1, and for more information, visit the website snowcountrystories.com. Now for my chat with Shota. Town of Nakano, which is very nearby Nagano City in terms of the management of the many abandoned or empty homes here. But just to help the listeners, can you just explain where is Nakano in relation to Nagano and Tokyo?
It's like 40 minutes drive from Nagano City, maybe 3.5 or 4 hours drive to Tokyo by using highway. I went to Tokyo like a couple of weeks ago by Shinkansen. It took like, I don't know, 1.5, I guess.
Yeah, Shinkansen from Tokyo to Nagano City.
Yeah, from Nagano.
Depends on which service you use, right? But it can be like 80 minutes or up to like 110. So yeah, like an hour and a half, right?
Yeah. It was quite fast.
Yeah.
I was surprised.
What reason why did you have to go down to Tokyo?
I wanted to see the concert.
Who did you see?
This event called Punk Spring. So punk musicians gathers once, like Bad Religion, My Chemical Romance, and yeah, I wanted to see them.
How would you describe the area Nakano to someone who's not been here?
Well, the catch copy of this Nakano City is this countryside is just right for you. And when you break it down, it means like you can experience the countryside life, but also at the same time, it's quite convenient to do anything. When you seek like very wild countryside, like out of nowhere, maybe it's not like right for you.
Yeah.
But when you try to experience like a little bit of both, Nakano City is it might fit your target.
You might describe it as a kind of convenient countryside.
You
can get that. You can get that lifestyle.
That's right.
Still
convenient.
Yeah. What is your role and what job are you performing for Nakano?
So this job is overseen by the national government, and it basically requires 2 conditions. One is moving to the countryside from a bigger city, and number 2 is trying to make the area you chose lively as much as you can, of course. And every one of us, like me, have a mission category. Like agriculture, sightseeing, etc. In my case, it's about how to improve the Akiya problem.
Mm-hmm. So can you explain that term Akiya? Because I think for a lot of, obviously most listeners for this podcast are foreigners. They're not going to know the term Akiya. What does that mean in Japanese?
Akiya basically means abandoned house. According to the law, if a property registered as residence,
Mm-hmm.
not like vacation house or stores and stuff, but if that thing hasn't been used over a year, it becomes the subject of this law to apply.
Japan's a country which is experience rapid aging and depopulation. So I imagine there's quite a few Akiya, these abandoned homes across Japan. Any idea how many? What is there an estimate to how many homes in Japan are unoccupied?
Based on the data of Statistics Blue, the number of Akiya is almost 8.5 million.
Wow.
Yeah, which means 13%, like 13% of houses are abandoned. And you can assume that this number is going to keep increasing. It's mostly because of aging population being almost 1/3 of this country, and also nuclear familiarization. Are you familiar with this word?
The nuclear family is the kind of classic idea of mother, father, 2 or 3
Yeah,
kids.
like it's totally a standard now, like the style of family. Like you don't live with your parents-in-law or your actual parents. Like you only live with your kid or husband or wife.
Yeah.
That causing it difficult for elderly people to be able to manage their property.
So not only do you have an aging population and fewer children being born, but there's a pressure in these areas to get work. And so a lot of young people, when they leave, they will go to the large city like Tokyo, Nagoya, and never come back. Leaving these homes not only empty, or if they are occupied, maybe very older family members living there by themselves who can't maintain it. So is that the trend that you see in Nakano with your job?
Yeah, I see that case a lot.
Do you know in Nakano specifically, this area, how many homes are unoccupied at this time?
It'll be more than 1,000.
More than 1,000 homes.
Yeah.
In a area with a population of about 40,000 people.
Yeah.
That's a pretty amazing number. So I know that across Japan, many towns now maintain what they call Akiya banks, these databases of unoccupied homes in their area. It's important to note, however, that the first step is to get the property listed on the database, which means that somebody needs to speak to the owner to convince them to list them. And this process can take time and can be complicated. So as a result, there are relatively few of those abandoned homes are actually listed on these databases to purchase or to rent. Do you find it's difficult to convince the owners to put their properties onto these databases to make them available?
I think the key point is convincing the elderly people owning Akiya who don't really want to believe that's actually been abandoned. Do you know what I mean? Like they goes back to the property maybe once in a year or once in 2 years for specific national holidays or family occasion or something. So they don't really think it's been abandoned in terms of not being used, right? So they don't want to face the reality, I guess, and because it's very troublesome for them because they don't have enough energy to deal with it. You know what I'm saying? They tend to stop thinking or making any action. That's the fundamental part of these obstacles.
That's interesting what you said there. I hadn't considered that before, that they don't see the home as unoccupied.
Yeah.
Because they're still using it in some way.
Yeah.
And the home plays an important role to them emotionally.
Yes,
right?
That's right.
Yeah.
Like it's from stranger's eye, it's a totally different thing. Like the heart, I mean the structure, I mean the house itself, and their emotion. It's separate thing, but somehow it get mixed up for their own mind.
You described it to me before the interview, the process of convincing owners to put their property on this database to make them available to buy or rent.
Yeah.
You described it to me like a game of Jenga,
Yeah.
which I thought was interesting. What exactly did you mean by that?
Well, like I said, for them to be able to list their Akiya on the platform requires a lot of patience and needs to be able to avoid so many obstacles like, inspections, laws, setting a price range, and more importantly, their feelings, like I just mentioned earlier. And that's why I said it's like a Jenga or something like an obstacle race.
Does that mean that it's very easy to say the wrong thing at the wrong time and stop the process? I mean, you have to listen very carefully to what they want. When you say like a Jenga, things can collapse easily, is the idea?
Yeah, like so many steps that you need to clear.
Yeah.
So of course I listen their needs.
Yeah.
Very carefully.
Yeah.
And then I support them. So I make kind of a strategy, like I make list of like to-do list.
Mm.
And if they cannot do one of them, I help them.
As a result of there being so many unoccupied homes, I can only imagine the property prices must be quite low.
Yes. Usually a house that's been built over 25 years has no value or even minus. Only the land still has a value.
The land would have more value if it was just no house at all.
Like they set the price based on the value of land. But if the house is very bad condition, like you gotta tear it down or something, and it takes cost, right?
Yep.
So that amount of cost minus the value of the land.
So in Nakano, I imagine that maybe it's a difficult question to answer, but what types of prices are these homes typically available for?
Actually, this take us back to the matter of obstacles, actually, because the final decision of price is up to the owner, right? So of course we show them the average price based on the size or condition or surrounding environment or something like that. In my experience, under 3 million yen.
3 million, yeah. So 3 million yen.
Japanese yen.
In US, it always fluctuates a bit, but in US dollars, I think that's about 23,000 US. Australian 34,000 Australian dollars.
I guess something like that.
Which are tiny prices compared to the markets in those countries. So
yeah. That's the borderline to be able to find right targets, first or not. Like more than 3 million, it might take some time to find the potential buyers.
So a lot of the houses I think that we're talking about are Showa period houses. Is that correct?
Yeah, most of them are Showa era.
Showa. And just to explain to listeners in case you're not familiar, Showa era refers to the reign of Emperor Hirohito. And so the exact dates for what would be considered Showa are 1926 to 1989. This covers quite a long time frame in Japan, from pre-World War II to post-World War II. And construction during those times really, I think, reflected the economic and social realities that Japan was experiencing from the depression of the 1930s, then Japan on its war footing through the 30s and 40s, into the devastation of the war itself and rebuilding, and then the economic boom of the 60s and 70s and 80s. My understanding, Shota, is construction of homes in that time reflects those realities, and they weren't necessarily built to last forever. And they can look a little bit simplistic if you compare them to what came before with the beautiful kominka and these buildings that were a lot stronger and more kind of traditional.
Yeah, they're not really decent, actually.
Because these buildings weren't necessarily built to last.
Yes.
Is it hard to maybe get some people to put value on them? Maybe they think, just let it tear it down.
Yes.
It wasn't meant to be there forever.
Yeah. Like you said, it not meant for to be stand forever. So tear it down could be a solution sometimes. It's not easy to find people who likes those style of houses.
So did you feel that what you're trying to do here in finding a solution for the Akiya of this town, is it a vision that you feel like local residents share? Do you feel supported in what you're trying to do here?
Well, in that sense, this activity is still minority because there's no all-round solution about the Akiya problem in Japan. But however, I think people who respect something like craftsmanship tend to care about this matter more seriously than normal people. I met this architect and foreman here and taught me a lot about their work, and it has been a base for assembling my project.
Yeah. Because you don't have any background in architecture or design.
No, absolutely not.
So you
like zero knowledge. Yeah, I watched I've watched a lot of YouTube video, but there's a limit that you can learn from out of just videos, And so I asked these architects and foremen that can I go volunteering, and I actually want to see how you do it. And then they were quite welcome for me, so I learned how to use tools by watching this foreman's work.
I imagine they're very happy to have you interested, right?
I hope so. and they're super nice people.
What value do you see in saving these buildings?
The sort of craftsmanship that I mentioned earlier, the more you get to know about Japanese architecture, the more you see how much work it took back in the day. And especially now the price of woods timbers going higher and higher, right? So it is such a waste to let those Japanese traditional house to rotten just because.
Because I think what you're talking about is trying to lead people to really change their mindset about what to expect instead of just tearing down properties that can be fixed and lived in again.
Right.
And try to kind of upcycle, not just upcycle on a small scale, but really upcycle the community.
Yeah, right.
And take advantage of what's already here in order to make it healthier. But if somebody were interested in the properties available here in Nakano, what's the next step? How can they see those properties? How could they get in contact with you?
I try to translate my blogs, which has link for Nagano City's Akiya Bank and $1 project called Akiya Gateway. So just feel free to contact me, and let me see what I can do.
Fantastic. And just on that note, you mentioned the $1 Akiya or the 100 yen Akiya.
Oh yeah,
that's something which is quite specific to Nakano. Sorry, can you just give me a little information there when you refer to that? What do you mean the $1?
$1 project is for the platform to buy Akiya, which has problematic reason. They cannot usually sell.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's just because of surrounded environment or something else.
Something unique to that property is affecting its ability to sell. And so Nakano has a program where they can be purchased for literally $1. That's my understanding.
Yeah, including land it's just $1 to buy the property.
So on today's show notes, I'll include a link to your website. I'll also include your Instagram handle, so if anyone's interested to follow you. And if you need to get in contact, you can just use the contacts through either of those and direct it through to Shota.
Yeah, why not?
Yeah, he'll be back in time. Shota, why don't we wrap it up there? I feel like I've taken up plenty of your time today. So I really hope you've enjoyed speaking.
Yeah. It was fun. I'm not very sure that I could talk well, but it was great experience, and thank you for inviting me for this show.
No, I've enjoyed it, and I think hopefully listeners get something from this, and maybe can again find reason to come and talk again in the future. It's such a big topic, Akiya.
It does, actually it does.
So I think there's lots of reasons to chat again. So thank you very much.
Thank you.